Welcome to SocialFlight Live. This represents the first time that we're running SocialFlight Live, and so we're going to work our way through some challenges as we do this technically, and also find what's best for you, our viewers. And one of the things that we're going to start with right now is a poll. Okay, so everybody should be getting a poll right now. What I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about what SocialFlight is and what we're obviously trying to do here. And so obviously we have some challenging times, to say the least. What I'd like to do is talk to you about what we're going to do. We've decided to have a show that is going to be happening on a regular basis, multiple times throughout the week, where we can talk to General Aviation, get everyone together, and try to talk about what we can do to support pilots, to support General Aviation, to get some information about what's happening in the industry, as well as help for clubs and EAA chapters, and some information about just for entertainment purposes. How's things going with our build here? Things like that. So I think that that's really important and an important thing to be able to do for everyone here. So we've got some people viewing in, 77% right now strongly support getting out and flying, 21% people are okay with it but haven't been flying, and only 2% of people are not in favor of flying. And that's important because General Aviation is something that I think the social distancing aspect is sort of built into it. So that's a little bit about what SocialFlight Live is going to be. And we have Don McPherson, and so Don is an owner, operator, and all things that make up our local airport here at Minuteman Airport in Stow, Massachusetts. And I'd just like to say a few things. Minuteman is the airport that I basically grew up in aviation. Now, that wasn't from a young age, but that is in how I got into aviation and how I grew into it. And so I'm thankful for its existence and everything that goes along and everything that Don does for that. And one of the nice things is that being able to have Don here, we can talk and learn a little bit about what's happening from the aircraft owner's perspective, what communications from the state, from other areas, really front lines, what's happening. So welcome, Don.
Thanks, Jeff. Glad to be here. And let me say that I'm not all things Minuteman Airfield. I may be the most visible part of Minuteman Airfield, but it's the community that exercises their aviation privileges here that makes it such a special place, including you at SocialFlight and the EAA Chapter 196 and the many tenants that are doing some exciting things. Not to mention my wife's restaurant.
That's true. You know, after all, airports and airport restaurants go hand in hand, and Nancy's Airfield Cafe is a fantastic thing up here to have and a great destination. And you know, I think that's also obviously a concern because restaurants are suffering throughout aviation and throughout the world right now. And in here, airport restaurants for our world, how have things happened there?
Well, I'll take luck anytime over skill. And one of my lucky things recently is that we hired a wonderful person in January, Ellen Setzer, wife of a pilot friend of mine who has worked with her husband for 15 years building an RV-7. They're about to, they're just doing the weight and balance paperwork on it right now. And she's been helping us with marketing and event planning and has salvaged Nancy's restaurant from total closure and converted it into a takeout dinner restaurant operation through social media and print media. And it looks like we might survive.
Wow. That's really good news. Now, I noticed that you just put out a NOTAM. I'm going to share that on the screen for everyone to be able to see, or at least you're not a NOTAM in the FAA sense, but your NOTAM of information about the airport. And I'm gonna move that so people can see that. And so that's an example of what's happening right now at different airports and what you're doing to keep things going during this time. First of all, that's a good fuel price.
Well, one, Ellen put this out. She's my digital gal, And two, that price is likely to go down somewhere in the vicinity of 80 cents a gallon when we get our next shipment, which should be in a week or two.
Wow, so you expect us to be in the three, somewhere with a number starting with a 3.
Yeah, 370, 360, somewhere in there.
Wow.
We
So let's
always
talk about
adjust our prices, whether they go up or down with every load. We're very transparent about the way we price. We never gouge our customers, and we always work to keep the price as low as possible.
Right. So let's talk about for a minute. You know, we are broadcasting here from Massachusetts, where we're located, and people are watching this from all over the country, and every state is going through different things. And we recently, as of 12 noon today, came under a new order of the state having to do with restrictions for critical businesses, essential businesses. And there's a lot of confusion even here within the state about what that means. We have looked at the legislation that just was enacted and looked at the details. Essentially, it is not something that forces people to stay at home. It does say that gatherings from a social perspective cannot exceed 10 people here in Massachusetts. Outdoor activities where people come in contact with one another, such as at basketball courts or anything like that, are not allowed to happen anymore. And non-essential businesses, whether they be manufacturing or anything else, are not allowed to be open until, I believe it's April 7th at this point. And what's interesting is that when you look at the list of essential businesses, there are most of the things you would need in your daily life are listed as essential businesses. That includes takeout restaurants, as Don just mentioned. That includes shopping places you would go to shop for essential items, everything that has to do with food or fuel, anything that has to do with telecommunications, energy, support services, anything that touches the medical industry. Pretty much anything that's really critical is actually happening. And where I'd like to bring that back here to General Aviation is with you, Don, because you had direct communication that, of course, the airport and its services are essential services, right?
Right. There's a long list of services that are considered essential. Transportation figures largely in there. Transport of food and countless things, including gasoline and gasoline stations. And so we're open really for two reasons. One, we provide a transportation service with the runway, but we also are a gas station. So we sort of are open for, we fall into two categories. But the thing that we're really working to do is make sure we comply strictly with social separation while providing those critical services to pilots that choose to fly.
So for example, how does fueling work right now?
We are a self-fueling operation, but it's sort of an attended service. We usually have somebody out by the pumps to help you if you need it and to write down the fuel numbers. And then normally you would go back inside the office to pay for your fuel. Now we're keeping everybody outside the office so the staff are insulated in terms of social separation. But the fueling is going on pretty much as it always does.
So just to fill people in, so for example, the way that operations at Minuteman work is there's a night fueling a pump setup where you can go and fill everything out. You have a code if you have an account. That's the way operations are working currently?
Correct. 9 to 4, I'm staffing the office myself. I've been forced to lay off all my help, needless to say. But if people wanted to come up and use a credit card or pay with a check, they'd be able to do that. But most of our customers, regular customers, take advantage of the deep discount we offer for prepaid fuel, which gives them 24-hour access. So they're able to get fuel at night or before 9 or after 4 in the afternoon.
Right. So that's important because basically it's business as usual when it comes to operations during the day, and the ability, when I say business as usual, the ability to get fuel and to get those services and even takeout from the restaurant. And then off hours, the same process that was used before. And I think that hopefully is similar to what's happening at other airports in the state.
One little minor point, we're not accepting cash because we don't want to handle the bills. So it's
Good
either
point.
credit card or check, and when people use a pen to fill out the check, we let them take the pen with them, so we don't have to sterilize it. And we're wiping down the pump nozzles and the door handle pulls and the restrooms after every use. We're doing everything we can to uphold the serious part of this business, and that's to prevent the spread of the virus.
Right. Yeah, that's really, really important. So, you know, we conducted that poll, and it was interesting and very good to see. You know, 76% of the people who responded to our polls strongly supported getting out and flying. 22% said that they're okay with it, but they haven't been personally able to get out or fly much. And only 2% said that they're not in favor of people flying right now. There's different I think, aspects to flying that we can look at in regard to the crisis that's going on now, and I'd like to discuss those with you for a minute. One of the things, certainly, you had mentioned to me earlier that there's a lot of critical support that goes on and goes through your airport and through all the other airports that are going on now. Have you seen a fair amount of that?
We've only seen a little
people
bit
delivering
right now
things
because the weather's been so bad.
I should tell everyone it just stopped snowing this morning.
Well, myself and a helper plowed the airport this morning. We were open, fully operational at 10 minutes of 8 this morning. What we've said on this NOTAM, I don't know if your viewers can read that, but we're suggesting that solo flying is a good way to adhere to physical separation guidelines while you conduct your charitable, emergency, or essential public service flights. So we're strongly encouraging people to get out there and do their angel flights and fly rescued turtles and all of the many things that pilots do regularly and during emergencies. It won't be long, I don't think, before we hear about GA pilots flying loads of masks made in Burlington, Vermont into Boston or New York for use. So
Right.
GA will once again be helping out in this emergency. And of course, airports have to be open for that to happen.
Right. You know, General Aviation is such a backbone of transportation in this society for many ways that are hidden to the average person. I mean, obviously, you see truckloads, you know, happening down the streets that supply our stores. But in times of crisis, moving people in some cases, but also supplies, helping patients, all sorts of things like that, and first responders is a real big part of general aviation. And the fact that those airports like yours are located in all of these communities and not just in city centers, which, by the way, are some of the most challenged by the crisis, I think makes it even more valuable to do that. And so I think one of the things that to keep in mind and find out how we communicate in general to the non-flying public is you start with that essential services side of things and the importance of that airport. And you mentioned, by the way, the shops being able to repair aircraft is specifically listed as essential services as well.
They are on the governor's list of services, correct?
Right. So
aircraft maintenance and line services and so forth.
I had a discussion with the owner of one of the largest avionics resellers and shops recently in the country, who told me that he's encouraged by the fact they actually have not seen cancellations happening, and they are still doing installation work. Now, when you think about it, what's interesting about aircraft facilities for maintenance, as well as avionics shops in particular, if you were to go into one of those shops 6 months ago, before any of this ever started, what I think you would find, which I found most times, is you would see a few people separated by a pretty big distance, working separately under different aircraft while wearing gloves. And so the reality is, many of these businesses that support aircraft have social distancing essentially built into them, and there is safety in doing that. And so having them continue those operations to keep these aircraft flying is important. I think where things get tougher is when you start talking about the operations that have had to cease, such as flight training, where two people who or multiple people in tight quarters will have to be there. But when it comes to independent flying, I think that we need to keep that going, and the polls certainly show that that's what people support.
So there's another part to this that I haven't heard mentioned in the TV broadcast, but we all have some responsibility to keep the economy going. We're only reading about the economic impacts because people's paychecks haven't run out from last week yet. But starting this week, a lot of people are not going to get paid. And to the extent that we can boost the economy in our little tiny corner of the world without compromising social separation, I think it's beholden on us to do that. And
I agree.
the economy's going to need every little help it can get. So we're making a little boost right here.
Yeah, I think that's important, both in that and also in the folks that we're communicating to that are watching right now. Everybody's in a different situation personally, and so if you're not able to spend right now, then of course you can't, and it's up to the rest of us to try to help people like you. And some of that is through frequenting the businesses that can remain open, by doing the takeout from the restaurants that are safely allowed to still do takeout, etc. You know, the types of things in our world, I think, are everything's on a longer time scale in most cases. If you're looking at upgrading your aircraft, that's something that takes time. If you're looking at a new engine, that has never been something you can just get done in a few weeks, unless you don't have a ton of planning ahead of it. Avionics, other purchases. People should no longer be sharing headsets in this type of an environment, for example. And of course, we're supported by both Bose and Lightspeed. And we're going to have some headsets that we'll be giving away through this whole campaign and through SocialFlight. And it's also important, I think, if this is a time to do things like that.
Another point, if I may, we're all familiar with drag and lift. And one of the things that flying does is lift people's emotions. Everybody is dealing with this in different ways. And I've heard people talk about panic. I'm pretty relaxed. I'm on my third jigsaw puzzle at home at night, and I haven't run out of scotch yet, so I'm all set. But the fact that flying is uplifting in so many ways emotionally is another thing and another reason to do it, provided you're responsible about social and physical separation.
Right.
The other thing that's happened here is that we've been really quite amazed at the support the restaurant has seen. And I only know ours by example, but I'm hearing that other restaurants are seeing the same thing. People are coming out in unexpectedly large numbers to support their restaurants with takeout, buying gift certificates in advance so restaurants have cash. And in our case, they've been leaving huge tips for the one waitress that we have delivering the orders and accepting the payment.
Right.
It's very uplifting. People are out and they understand that we're all in it together, and helping each other is critical. And you can help everybody by flying responsibly and safely.
I totally agree with that. You know, I was thinking to myself in this debate of, is it okay to just go flying if you do it safely, and trying to ponder that. We've certainly talked about how critical it is for the people who actually support the effort, who could be delivering masks, who could be helping people out and doing, you know, rescue flights and all sorts of things that are incredible, angel flights and so many other things. But there is the aspect of just going out and flying and continuing life as long as it's safe. And so if you think about, let's say you've got someone that just owns a Pitts, and during this time when everyone's struggling, and instead of focusing on the news cycle, they go to the airport, they pull their plane out of their hangar, they're only flying alone, they fuel it up using the safe practices that you've got established there at the airport, and they go drill some holes in the sky. And some worried kid on the ground sees a Pitts up there doing amazing things and is able to smile, to get inspired, that avgas gets used, that all these things happen, I think it all contributes to society, and we have to just keep going and making new pilots, inspiring people, and keeping our spirits up.
100%. I agree.
So any other news or anything you'd like us to, as a takeaway for what's happening over there at Minuteman?
No, I think we're good.
Excellent.
We're good here.
Don McPherson.
There was something else did happen today. I wrote to my bank early this morning because, among other things, I'm a landlord. I have tenants, individual aircraft tied down here, and National Aviation Academy mechanic school here, which is shut down by the mandates, a maintenance shop, a flight school shut down, and so forth. And it's sooner or later they're going to have trouble paying their rent. Sooner or later I'm going to have trouble paying my mortgage. So I called the bank or emailed the bank this morning and wondered if they were considering some kind of help. And within 15 minutes, I got back a nice letter saying that they had two options for people to consider picking up on if they were having trouble paying their mortgage. We're not having trouble yet, but the bank is out there in advance trying to help make this work. And I can only guess that banks across the country are doing that. So that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
I feel like we're supported by the banking industry and presumably by the government behind them.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, there's help in a lot of ways out there, and I think that that's one of the things that we can all do as well. Again, within the safe practices, anything that we can do is good, and that just kind of keeps aviation going. So, Don McPherson, Minuteman Airport, thank you so much for joining us for this part of our program. Really appreciate it.
Been a pleasure, Jeff.
Stay tuned. We are going to then move on until a little bit of a tour of our facility. Thank you. And we will say goodbye to Don there, and then talk about, let me switch applications. Okay, and then we are going to actually join with Jake and Ben, the rest of our team here at SocialFlight, and we're going to go talk about our T-51 Mustang build. And as you can see, that is right here behind me. Now, I'll tell you something in advance if you don't already know, and that is, if you are going to be locked up for any period of time due to a crisis like this, isolated in any way, and have to be homebound, I cannot tell you enough how wonderful it is to do that when you have a big project to do. And if you're going to have a big project to do, and it's going to be in aviation, the one that's sitting right here behind me is a pretty good way of moving things along. And as Jake and Ben get set up right now, I'm going to switch the camera over to them. But again, I'd like to thank all of the companies that are standing behind us and making this happen. First and foremost, this aircraft is here with the help of Titan Aircraft that produces the T-51D Mustang. It's a 3/4 scale home-built kit aircraft that is, I have flown it. It is absolutely amazing and inspiring for us to build here. We also have Lightspeed, Avidyne, Artex, Bendix King, Aspen Avionics, the Plane and Pilot magazine stands behind us, Wheelan, EarthX, Bose. The list goes on, and our tools are from Aircraft Tool Supply, as well as our avionics include the support from L3 Harris, which provides our links system there as well. So we have our stack, as you can see, is Avidyne, Lynx, Aspen, Bendix King, all of the best names in general aviation avionics coming together, and the rest of the companies that make everything happen with this aircraft. So let me see if we can switch this in and bring in both those guys. I'm going to invite Ben in on the call right now. Bear with us. There we go.
So this is where I've been spending most of our time building the aircraft when we were out from school. I'm a junior in high school, so being out from school gives me a lot of time to work on the airplane. So the first thing that we got when we got the tons of boxes of parts that we got was categorize them, because when we want to start a project, we need to know where the parts are. We don't want to be spending half of our time just trying to look for the parts. So we categorize them by where they are. We have some more parts on the other side, and we'll show you when we walk around. But basically, you know, we got some really cool parts over here. So this is the main assembly for the canopy, and we have some other, you know, really cool that really allow us to get everything together.
In addition, we have some materials like paper and other things that we use to make assemblies for designing new structures and things.
Yeah, so this is the main construction site. So this is where we assemble most of our parts, like the door for our belly scoop. So that's where the air coming through the radiator will exit, and will depend on how much engine cooling we're getting. So this is a project that we're still working on right now. And we start those projects over here in our drilling and cleat-going station. So as temporary rivets, we use cleat-goes. And we have everything from cleat-goes, cleat-go clamps to all of our drill bits. And this is our main section of our build. We come over here to you know, where we assemble. So we'll cut parts, we'll measure, we'll do every basically every smaller part on the plane will be roughly over here. And it's really fun to be able to slowly see parts come together. As you can see, so we're going on the long end, so we're getting to the front end of the aircraft. And so this is one of my favorite parts of the whole build, and that is just the endless amounts of tools that we're able to get. Hardware and tools are probably one of the most fun parts of building this plane. And a very cool tool that we were able to get was this electromagnetic sheet metal folder. And so just by turning this on, you're able to make a really clean bend into basically all of our parts, and it really helps us make all of our sheet metal, you know, go very quickly. Do you have anything to say about it?
So we have various tools and pieces of equipment that we use, sanders and band saws and other pieces of equipment. And yeah, this is our station where we do our more rough cutting and designing and fitting. We have a bunch of just some scrap pieces. We have our stock pieces. We have just everything that we get together and cut and fit into the parts we use in our plane.
Yeah, so it's really cool because this is the first opportunity for us to show you our shop at a larger scale than we usually do within our videos. We're usually focused on one specific thing and building. You get to see pieces come together for one specific thing. But it's kind of nice for you to see what this whole environment is and how the plane is coming together. And many of the parts are actually further along than you even see here, because the process of building an aircraft involves putting things on and then taking them off again after you fit them, so that you can still get access and finish out a lot of parts. And then one of the things that kind of proves that is you can see here that what's below me to the right is this whole area where the belly is going to be. And that area is fiberglass, and we actually have that piece, and have already started fitting much of that. So we've actually seen it. It's from our perspective, we've actually seen what the shape is of the aircraft with that belly skin on, and that is something left to be a surprise to everyone as they see the videos come further along in the process. But it is great to see the boys showing off the different tools that we use, the way we use some of those tools, and we'll go into more detail about that a little further on as we develop our series of SocialFlight Live. One of the things that's our most recent projects, if you want to kind of fast forward to what's happening right now, we are closing out that belly, finishing out that part of the system. We are installing the electrical system on the aircraft, and we are also working on the instrument panel. We have used a combination of software as well as just cutting and pasting different things on the panel to get our actual fit to figure it out. But ultimately, this is what we are currently looking at for layout of our panel. I'm going to move this up a little bit and see so that you can kind of see what we've got. Now, in many aircraft, experimental aircraft panels, you'd have only experimental avionics in there. But we've chosen to go with certified equipment that mirrors what we have in our Bonanza. And so, looks like I'm muted. So in future episodes, we're going to talk about flight simulators.
Yep.
We're going to have some interesting stuff to talk about there. We've got someone who's going to come on and talk about how to properly clean an aircraft for safety, to sterilize it and prevent transmission of the virus through doing that. So we've got a lot of different things that we could do. We'll also have different stories. But one of the things that I'm encouraged by the poll numbers of people wanting to get out there and fly that we'd also like to launch is a program that we call Takeoffs for Takeout.
Yep.
Takeoffs for Takeout. And you know, before all of this hit, we had the Fly to Win Challenge, which was all about getting out to events and destinations and things like that in order to be able to just enjoy general aviation. And we had prize giveaways and all things that go along with it. Well, we still have the ability of giving away prizes. We have some fantastic things. We have Zulu 3 headset. We have Bose 20 headsets. We've got Massimo pulse oximeters. We've got so many great prizes to be able to give away as part of this new promo. We're just hoping that everyone can participate. And so the idea here is, first and foremost, to fly safely, to fly with the proper social distancing, so nothing that is happening is something that could increase transmission of the COVID-19 virus or cause any other risks for the flying public or anyone else in the public. Once you're doing that, once we know that everyone is practicing safe social distancing through their flying, we do want to get out there and fly. And so the very fact that you go to airports, and what we want you to do is send us your story and a picture to tell us what you did. And we are going to use those. We're going to talk about those stories. We're going to feature those stories. And then we're going to choose people at random based on having good, well, not totally random, right? It's going to be people with good stories. Yeah. And put them in a hat and pick out who's gonna win some really good prizes. And so all you have to do is send your picture and your story of flying and being kind of hopeful and celebrating flight during this very challenging time to us. It's just info@socialflight.com, info, info@socialflight.com. And so that's it. We would like for everyone to be able to go and kind of join us in that effort, and hopefully that will continue. And the other thing is there's a poll that's in Social Flight's weekly email today, and that is when you'd like to see this show, Social Flight Live. We know people work during the day, people are on both coasts and different time zones. And so we had this one, of course, at 3 p.m. during the day Eastern time, and we are also looking at switching it to an evening time, at least for the East Coast, of 8 p.m. So we're going to look at the poll results for that and look at when we can schedule our next show. And it may very well be that we do one at 3 and one at 8. You know, maybe we'll do Tuesdays at 3 p.m. and Thursdays at 8 p.m., whatever actually ends up working out. But we would like to hear from you. So again, thank you so much for your time. We've really appreciated it. We appreciate you bearing with us, especially through some of the technical issues. This is our first time of doing this live program, having multiple cameras, interviewing people from remote locations. And so apologize for the silences, the echoes, and any of the other issues along the way. You have our word that we will get that all taken care of as soon as possible. A recording of today's presentation will be available. We'll get that posted to our YouTube channel, and people will be also notified through the GoToWebinar link that they use to join us. So until next time, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jeff Simon from Social Flight. This is Jake. Ben's right off camera here. We appreciate them taking the time to show you everything with our T-51 Mustang build. Please stay safe and keep flying blue skies.